Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tennessee Fats and I'm coming to you from the library today because it is an absolute scorcher outside today. So because of that, I shut the office down early. I said, go home. And I sent myself home at the same time, of course, because I said, let's go to my nice cool office at home and just chillax for the afternoon because clearly nothing is going to get done today. So I said, why don't I make this productive? Well, I am going to make it productive, and I'm shooting a video for you guys where I'm going to do a Marvel graphic novel review. Now, for those of you this is the first time checking out one of my videos, I will warn you ahead of time. There's two things I do on this channel, two of them, okay? Two. One, I ramble like a crazy old man. Now, I think that's a pretty much known fact for those of you who have watched my videos. Number one, because I'm a crazy old man. Number two, I'm really good at rambling, so I do that. Second thing we do on this channel is we stick with Robert E. Howard content, and particularly we're focusing right now on Conan the Barbarian. Now, for those of you who are in the know about Marvel graphic novels and Conan the Barbarian, you know there are not that many particular Marvel graphic novels that are actually Conan specific. Well, here's what we got for us to talk about today. This is Marvel graphic novel number 19, which came out in 1985. That makes this book literally 38 years old as of the time of me shooting this video today. That's old. And typically this wouldn't be an issue because when you go and you find a Marvel graphic novel out in the wild, typically it's been dog-eared and it has had a pretty rough life. The problem with this one is it's in cherry condition. So I had a little bit of an issue with this one because the little OCD version of Tennessee Fast that actually is a comic collector of certain things said, you are not destroying this book just to review it for a YouTube video. The other reviewer side of me said, oh, I got ideas. We got to share this thing. So the two of them had to have a conversation. And I got to tell you, it was not an easy one, and it was heated, words were said, but I think they came to a conclusion that's the middle ground. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use technology. I know, it's crazy. I'm an old guy, and I'm going to try to use technology. Let's see if we can make this work. I'm going to try to do this side-by-side fancy thing here, where I'm going to show you the controlled photos that I took of this when I was going through it, and you're going to see those as I'm walking you through the story. It's going to be creepy for me. I hope it's not too creepy for you guys. Let's get into the book. Okay, let's get into this bad boy. Now, let's start this one off correctly, okay? Word to the wise. This one deals with a lot of Conan and Acheron. Okay, now for those of you who don't know what Acheron is, I'm going to put a link up here to the prior video I did where I did the actual movie adaptation of the Conan 2011 film comic that came out. And in that, one of the things I said was, you know, if anything, this book is worth buying just for the essay about Acheron at the end. Now, this is really important. And for those of you who want to know a little bit about Acheron, go watch that video. It'll give you a little bit of detail. Not a lot, because I didn't want to go into too much of a spoiler on that one, but it will at least show you what you're after, so you can go find that book yourself. So Acheron, for those of you who don't know, is an ancient kingdom that existed well before the time of Conan. It's well back there. And I'm not going to go into a lot of lore. All you need to know is it's in the past. Now, this is where we're going to get into a lot of details about this particular graphic novel. So this is where I'm going to put in the spoiler alert now, okay? For those of you who don't want me to ruin this for you, stop watching the video now, all right? So for those of you who are sticking around, you got to be aware. I'm going to show you this graphic novel. We're going to get into it, and I'm going to walk you through the story. So let's go. If you're still here, this is where we're starting. So you're ready. Okay, here we go. All right, so the story starts off, well, let's actually, before the story starts off, let's just take a look at the book, okay? Let's take a look at the book itself. So I'm going to show you guys the front and the back of this one. And as you guys can see, this is really where the little OCD Tennessee Fats was having an issue because this thing is in cherry condition. Let's face facts. The majority of these Marvel graphic novels that were specifically for Conan probably spent the early parts of their lives after they were bought off the shelves sitting in the back of really creepy vans with teardrop windows in them and airbrushed logos on the side of them with like giant fantasy depictions of mountains and moons and bikini-clad women riding dragons holding swords and motorcycles that have flames coming out of the back, throwing dice on the ground, and giant hand from poker that's all full of ace of spades. Like, that's probably what would have been on the van, and it would have smelled a little funky. Okay, that's really what I'm picturing here when I'm picturing these things when they were first purchased. So the fact that this is in the condition it's in is kind of good. Now, within the book right off the bat, you end up with the basic credit page. I'll let you guys look up the credits for this one yourself, okay? You can find out who wrote this and who drew it penciled it and who turned around and put the ink on it. You can do that all on your own, okay? So we're gonna get past that one very quickly. But it then goes into the Nemedian Chronicles intro. Now, the Nemedian Chronicles intro This is standard for most Conan stuff, okay? And it walks through and it says, here's the whole story, know ye, O prince, yada, yada, yada. But this one's a little different. If you look at the language on it, it's twisted at the end to specifically draw in the witch queen of Acheron. It's changed a little at the end there. Little twist there, little unique thing. And that's really what jumps you into the story and the splash page. And I think the splash page really sets the tone for the book. Take a look at it, okay? Look at the splash page and get a sense of what am I looking at here? And what's the overall story? And what is the tone and the art I'm going to see throughout this? Because that's really what you're seeing on the first page. When you look at the first page, you're saying, okay, the tone has now been set. And that's really here, okay? And I'll talk a little more about this when I come back to my conclusions where I'm really reflecting on this, but there's your splash page. The story starts here. Conan has found his way into a city in Nemedia where he's basically gone on a bender, okay? He's found himself in there, luckily, with some gold in his purse, and he's hanging around in a tavern with 3, shall we say, ladies of the night. Yeah, let's go with that phrase, because, you know, I'm trying to stop the YouTube algorithm from completely effing me over because I'm using language which sometimes might be a little, well, A, untranslatable, but B, sort of, maybe we shouldn't be throwing this one out there on the first page of our search results. Yeah, so let's just draw it back here, Tennessee fans. Anyways, he's having a good time, okay? Let's put it that way. And as he's having a good time, he wakes up one day to find that one of the 3 women that were with him is gone. And he's like, kind of odd. Conveniently, the city guard are pounding on the tavern door as Conan's waking up from his drunken stupor with 2 of the ladies, and they're saying, the prince has requested your presence. Now, this is kind of an interesting twist for me because the story starts off really with the conflict that's already being drawn up. You're getting a sense that Conan is going to be drawn into something important here. He's just in town on a bender and the prince is asking for him? That can't be good. Typically, the prince wouldn't be involved in some random wander on a bender. So what could be happening here? And you don't really know the whole story of where his money came from at this point in time. All you know is that he had a purse full of gold, and that's who he was paying his ladies of the night with and his stay at the tavern with. There's a comment about Conan breaking, or I think he dislocated his shoulder. Did he break the tavern owner's arm? I can't remember. He hurt the tavern owner. And Conan's thinking, well, maybe it's because of that. But it's more than that. They're demanding he goes and actually visits the prince. Conan is not supportive of this idea. And typical Conan fashion, he expresses his concerns with violence instead of words, which is, I think, what we all love about Conan. This one, we probably went a little over the top. Eventually, what happens is this initial disagreement about where Conan's going to go turns into a full-blown knock-em-out brawl that basically wrecks an entire area of the town. And during this particular battle, Conan is seen to do things that really would make him the Iborian Age equivalent of the Incredible Hulk. At one point in time, he tries to pick up a giant amphora jar to throw at somebody behind him, one of the guards that's chasing him. And the merchant is saying, no, don't throw that because, you know, this is how I make my money. And Conan's like, well, all right. So he grabs the amphora and the guy holding onto it and throws them a good distance through the air to fall on the guards. And you're looking at that going, he just picked up a full-grown man and an amphora, okay? This is not light, okay? And threw it a distance, like, and you're like, that's some serious muscle. That wow. And you kind of step back and go, he's still human, right? Did I miss something here? Is he not human anymore? Anyways. Gets into this entire brawl, which is trashing the parts of the town, and at the end of the day, really causes a piece of economic ruin for the town and destroying a F-ton of its wine by basically stopping the brawl. He takes all the barrels of wine and crashes them on people that are in the area that are demanding payment for all the damage he's done. And instead of making his way out of the town, he decides he's then going to get down and drink himself into unconsciousness. Probably not the smartest thing I've ever seen Conan do, but that's what he decides to do. Conan wakes up and he's in the palace and he is with Prince Tarascus. Now, Prince Tarascus we know, but we'll come back to that a little bit later. He wakes up with Prince Tarascus, and Prince Tarascus is saying to him, hey, I want to know where you found this gold. You came into town carrying a fair amount of Acheronian gold. Acheronian gold, not Acheronian gold. Acheronian gold. And in Nemedia, it is a crime to own this without giving it immediately to the royal family, or to the local constabulary or whoever's in charge. And Conan's like, And he's like, I want to know where you got this from. We have the introduction at this point in time of Tarascus's lady friend, Dementia, who is very unfortunately named. But that's what she is. She's Dementia. She makes her appearance in here. And Tarascus is attempting to get Conan to tell him, where did you get this from? And Conan's sort of playing the I'm going to bite my tongue here sort of thing. But at the end of the day, he does say, well, I was riding into town. I was going through the mountains. And as you know, there are people in the mountains that aren't really friendly with anybody. And I ran into a guy who was dying. A guy who was dying said, listen, I'll give you all of this gold. Check out all the gold. All I need you to do is bury me when I'm dead. Conan lives up to his part of the bargain. Guy dies. He buries him. He takes the gold, heads into town. Tarascus doesn't believe this. Says, okay, well, I don't believe you. I'm going to torture you now until you tell me what I need to know. And it really gets to the point where Conan's pretty much about to be dipped into a vat of boiling oil when he says, okay, fine, I know where it comes from. I'll lead you there. Just let me out of here. And Tarascus says, no problem, let's get you down from there. And Dementia's like, oh, I was looking forward to some torture. And again, really earning her name as Dementia. Anyways, Conan then manages to break loose of his actual confines and is trying to get out of the castle. And Tarascus basically has him cornered on the end of a ledge over top of a moat that's going to be, well, that is full of alligators. And Conan says, fine, I'll lead you there. Sorry for, taking you on this goose chase, running you through the castle, but I need your word that you're going to let me go. I'm like, no problem. So Conan heads them out into the woods. He heads them out into the mountain area. Now, the mountain area, for those of you who have read Hour of the Dragon, another classic Robert E. Howard story, or for those of you who have read that Acheron essay that I mentioned that was in the actual 2011 Moody adaptation, which is funny, my hands are over here and it's right behind me here on the shelf. Anyways, if you've read that, you know the mountains around here are actually where the descendants of the original people of Acheron are. So Conan's leading them in the right direction. And as they're heading out into the mountains towards what Conan is saying is going to be the source of the gold, which is what Tarascus is after with their giant retinue, they run into some of the sons of Acheron, who are not happy that they're there. And they throw rocks at them and try to kill them. And they back off a little bit and they go and they set up camp. And at this point in time, Conan says, well, I'm going to try to escape because, they've set up guards to watch here, but I'm pretty sure the guards are already dead because the sons of Acheron have already killed them. So I'm going to ride out of here. And the woman who was the third one that was at the beginning of the story, who's been here all the way along, but really hasn't played a pivotal role, suddenly steps up and says, well, I'll go with you because I'll help distract the guards. Well, when she gets there to help distract the guards, what she finds out is really they're just heads on spikes. There's nothing to distract there. It's at least not the part of the body that you're planning on distracting, at least not that way. Anyways, they decide to get on a horse and ride off. Well, when they're riding off, they suddenly realize, wait a minute, we're riding directly into this whole Sons of Acheron area. Perhaps we should just, get along with Tarascus until we can figure out what's going on here. They double back and they meet up with Tarascus. And Tarascus says, listen, that's not cool. I should flay you. And Conan's like, listen, I don't even know where the gold is. But at the end of the day, if any of us are planning on getting out of here alive, because these Sons of Acheron are all around us at this point in time, we should probably work together. And this is the really weird, twisty part, because they're in the middle of this whole conversation. And one of the scribes, who up until now has just been a grade A mook, comes wandering in and says, hey, you know that medallion thing you guys were talking about? And Conan's like, yeah, whatever. And Trask's like, yeah, whatever. He's like, no, listen, idiots. This medallion actually tells you where the source of this gold is from. I'm like, maybe listen to you. Oh, the mook actually has an idea. So they do. They listen to him. And they follow his path, and they actually find this tomb that was, again, still in the mountains, the territory of the Sons of Acheron, okay? They find the tomb. They dig their way into the tomb. And as they're heading their way into the tomb, they learn a little bit more about this witch queen. Now, to find out, really, is that the witch queen, how do I put this politely? She's not really the witch queen anymore. At least she wasn't when she was put in here. What's actually happened is the witch queen of Acheron was possessed by demons, or specifically a demon. And her own people poisoned her and buried her in here just to get her the hell out of the way. She was a problem. The demon that was within her was a material issue. So Conan is, talking to the mook who's telling them about this, because he's the guy who can read all this stuff, communicating all of this to Tarascus. When the Sons of Acheron arrive, guess what? Because you're still in their territory, and they're now attacking the opening to the tomb. So Conan leads a bunch of Tarascus's guards and men who are still alive up to the front of the tomb to fight off the Sons of Acheron, leaving Dementia back in the tomb. Now, I think this is one of those moments where you've got to reflect back in life. And again, I'm projecting me, Tennessee Fats, into an older Conan the Barbarian, who possibly would be reflecting back on these decisions and saying, you know, looking back on this, it was probably a bad idea to leave somebody named Dementia in the tomb with the witch queen that's possessed by a demon. This is probably not a good idea. But you know what? That was the decision they made at the time, and it's what they did. Well, as you and I would clearly expect is going to happen here, Dementia triggers the demon within the corpse of the witch queen coming out. Dementia basically takes in that demon and then goes on a rampage. It causes the whole schlamazel, the whole bingity bangity bongity, people buying all over the place. They just bad things are happening because what's happening now is she's ripping people's hearts out of their bodies and then drinking the blood of them, eating the hearts. And when she's doing this, what she's doing is she's infecting their bodies with the very demon that's inside her body. So net effect here is, once the sons of Acheron are fought back to a certain point in time, Conan, Tarascus, and a couple of the guys come back to find that Dementia has been a little busy, that they got dead bodies all over the place. And Tarascus is attempting to negotiate with Dementia. Conan cuts her hand off and then kills her. Tarascus is somewhat upset about this and then watches as Dementia basically, well, it's off panel. I think what's supposed to be inferred here is that she's blown up. She blowed up, and the demon that was within her is now out. Well, guess what? It's not just Dementia, as I mentioned earlier. There's a variety of other demons that are bloating out of these bodies that were left all over the place. So now Conan and Tarascus, and whatever's left of their own troop, are suddenly discovered, as well as, by the way, the woman who betrayed him in the first place, who tried to escape with him from the actual Tarascus and his group, are saying, maybe we should just leave. It's probably a good idea to not be here. So let's make our way out. So they're going to make their way out. Well, as they're making their way out, they run into, guess what? The sons of Acheron, because they've doubled back now, because this is their hereditary right. They're upset because what's in here is supposed to let them take over the earth again. Well, it's not really to let them take over the earth. It's going to let the demons that are in here take over the earth. So Conan, in his infinite wisdom, says, the sons of Acheron. Yes, well, the demons are right here. This is what you're after. The sons of Acheron, woohoo, yay, we've been waiting for this for thousands of years. Oh boy, it's the guys. They're going to help us. Well, it's not really that they're going to help them. It's not a good day for the sons of Acheron. But we don't know specifically what happens here because Conan collapses the actual tomb by knocking over one of the pillars. Again, Hyborian age, Incredible Hulk behavior. And the whole thing gets basically collapsed, burying the last of the sons of Acheron, burying the demons that came out of the Witch Queen of Acheron, and allowing Tarascus, we're going to call her, I think, what was her name? Was it Magda? I think it was Magda, actually. Magda, and Conan, and the Mook, and I think there was actually another person that was in that final image as well. I can't remember off the top of my head, though. They actually make their way back out, and they're going to go back to society. And Tarascus is saying to Conan, listen, I'm still going to flay you alive. You better hope I never see you again, because I could kill you. And Conan's like, well, I'm right here. And then nothing really happens of it. And then Conan's like, well, I'm just going to ride off. And then, of course, Lady Friend turns around and says, what, you're going to leave me here? And he's like, well, yeah, because you kind of betrayed me back there, which caused this whole poop storm to happen in the first place. She's like, yeah, but look at this bag of Acheronian gold that I stole. He's like, and you, young lady, are with me. And off they ride into the sunset. So that's really the entire story. There you go. Hopefully this whole technology has worked and you've got the floppity of the images coming up as we're going along here. And you've been able to see what we've been talking about. Now let's take a minute and actually think about, what do I, Tennessee Fats, think of this? What were my impressions of this? Because I don't make these videos just for fun. I make these because I actually want to prove a point, or at least make a point here at the end of them. Let's go. All right, it's conclusion time. Okay, so what did I think of this? Well, I think you might have been able to tell as I was walking through this story here, because you've actually seen me walk through the story this time. Instead of me showing you the book with me voicing in the background, you had me, which I got to apologize for. Anybody wanted to take a look at me for more than 20 minutes? Oh, that is not a positive thing. I know what kind of ugly is sitting over here, so I apologize retrospectively for what I did there. Anyway, move point. What did I think of this? Well, I got to tell you, this was a funny one for me, and I always shoot these conclusions sort of off the cuff, because the idea here is I want to make sure this is organic and it's actually coming from the heart. It's because the heart wants what the heart wants. Like, you can't help that. So what did I think? Well, I gotta tell you, my expectations for a Marvel graphic novel are here. When somebody puts out something that's a prestige format book, especially in the 1980s, which these weren't common, okay? Like, there was comics happening. There were comics that were being made specifically for collectors at that point in time. And there were comics that were being made specifically to go on newsstands. A high format book like this, which has more pages than a regular story, you start off with an expectation. You're saying, okay, this is going to be epic. Like, when you pick up a regular Conan comic from 1985, you knew it was going to be a rather short story. It would be some vignette within Conan's life. There would be some sort of a problem, and Conan would solve it, and swords and women and Hyborian age gigolo behavior. And at the end of the day, everybody was going to come out fine. But when you get something this big, you have an expectation it's going to be a bigger story. But this story wasn't really that. If anything, this story was really just sort of a bar brawl type story, which took a lot of real estate up at the beginning of the book, that then turned into a dungeon crawl. And I gotta tell you, the bar brawl in and of itself was one where I was like, I don't really understand the motivation here. I understand potentially not wanting to be summoned to the prince, but why would you literally go to the process of destroying a big portion of this town as you're just wreaking havoc just to avoid meeting the prince? Especially since you don't even know what the prince wants. Something in that just seems off to me. That part, okay, the bar brawl story could really just be an entire issue of Conan the Barbarian. The dungeon crawl part of it, where you're in the tombs and there's the Witch Queen's body and the demons, which don't really have a major part of the book. They're actually fairly quick in and out of the book. And the Sons of Acheron fighting as this outside force that's fighting you while you're in the dungeon. And at the end of the day, it's all solved just by, introducing to one another like a blind date sort of scenario, knocking over a pillar and GTFO. I gotta tell you, to me, those two things could have been separate issues of just a regular Conan comic. I don't understand why this deserved a graphic novel. That to me, the story just wasn't deep enough for me to warrant that. I think they were fine tales in and of themselves. I think they would have done well in the comic, but I think packaging them as one Marvel graphic novel, I don't know, it falls short of what I think of when I think of this is what I expect to see in a Marvel graphic novel. And this could just be a me thing, because this is literally the second Marvel graphic novel of Conan that I've read. The other one is right over here, actually. I'm looking forward to reading this one. And that's another one we're going to have a challenge with, because it's also an incredibly high-grade copy. So, first world problems. Anyways, listen. That's what I think of the story. Now, the art. Well, the art in this is unique. And I ran into this when I read the Conan the Reaver story as well. It's different. And I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm going to say it's different. It's a different art style. It's a different artistic flair for Conan. And I understand what they're going for here. Typically, when you're looking at a Conan comic that was being produced at this point in time, and even today, Conan is drawn almost comically. Comically being funny, not comically as in it's a comic book. Like, the biceps are the size of his head. The veins sticking out of his biceps are the thickness of my finger. Like, I don't know. What kind of heart do you have to pump blood through a vein that's the thickness of my finger? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's really farcical to a point. So I understand what happened in the Conan the Reaver story, where you were trying to go for more realism. You were trying to go for, this is what a human body looks like. This is a reasonable human body. But then that reasonable human body can turn around and jump multi-stories to the ground without injury. It can pick up an amphora on a human being and toss them over a distance with very little effort. Disconnect there between the writing and the art. But either way, you end up with this different art style. And I'm not going to smack it down. I'm not going to say it was bad. Honestly, when I look at this art style, I say, okay, it was unique and it was different. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. When I'm reading a Conan book, I actually go for that farcical style. I think it's somewhat funny, especially when you're involving more of the fantastic sort of stuff to it. Like, when you look at this one, and I'll put up an image over here, where you see the demons that were basically being fought against. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, those demons just look weird. Like, everybody has a different idea in their head of what a demon looks like, but to me that just looked odd. Not bad, just different. Not particularly my cup of tea, but a lot of other people I'm sure would really enjoy this. Now, what were some of the key issues within this, besides the writing and the art, that just sort of made me go, because it was good in such a way that you had a self-contained story. And to my way of thinking, that's a positive thing. I always look for self-contained stories when I'm looking at something like a Marvel graphic novel, or I'm looking at a trade paperback. I want it self-contained. And to me, this was good. The art was different, but it was still good. I'm like, it's continuous throughout the book. It doesn't change drastically. I have continuity, and the art style was actually quite light. And that I thought was also good. But what are some of the things that I thought were just sort of, in this? Well, I gotta tell you, I don't like this retconning of Tarascus. We just finished on this channel the Hour of the Dragon story. We talked about that. We talked about it in detail, about Numidia. We talked about the whole thing that happened. It literally took me 3 hours of recording in order to do the entire Battle Royale. That was a big thing. And seeing this Prince of Numidia that knows Conan before Hour of the Dragon, that's a Prince of Numidia, but that's also not a prince that's in line for the throne, which is what we find out in the Hour of the Dragon, which is why the whole thing happened in the Hour of the Dragon. I don't like that. That left me with a very bad taste in my mouth. I'm like, I don't like you retconning that way. You've basically made me now go back and say, well, if Tarascus knew Conan in this way and had this much vehement hatred for him, would he have behaved that way in Hour of the Dragon? And I would argue he would not have. And we know what happened in Hour of the Dragon. It was already Howard wrote Hour of the Dragon. So I'm like, yeah, that. Other thing in this one that sort of made me go, that I didn't really like. The title of this is The Witch Queen of Acheron. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's 3 panels in this entire book that have the Witch Queen of Acheron. 3. Not 2, not 1. 3. For a book to be named The Witch Queen of Acheron, which to me says, okay, I am going to see some witching, I am going to see some queening, and I am going to see some Acheron. There was none of that in this. This, I think, completely misled me as a buyer of this book as to what was going to be covered within the book. Because I got to tell you, this was not a story of the Witch Queen of Acheron. This was a story about a demon that had been stuck in a corpse in a tomb for a long, long time. And when it came back, it bred like wildfire. And that's basically the story. Nothing to do with the Witch Queen of Acheron. So to me, who was looking for a lot of information about the Witch Queen of Acheron and Acheron, it weren't there. So those 2 things, I don't know. Nice self-contained story. I think this would do really well to consider this as a non-canonical Conan story. I think in that way, this is perfectly fine. I think most people who like non-canonical stories would read this and say, fantastic, I like it, I'm good, I'm golden. If you're like me and you're saying, how does this fit into the continuity? How does this relate to the other things that I know happen in Conan's life? The little OCD guy in the back of me is like, nope, I'm not buying it. Oh, all right, let's wrap this one up. Okay, I think it's fairly clear at this point in time that it's an okay story, but I'm not 100% supportive of it. What do I think if this is a Marvel graphic novel? I think it was good. I think the production quality is good. I'm very happy to have this in a high grade, and I'm glad I protected it the way I did. Put it that way. I'm glad it's here, and I'm glad I own it. Do I think this is really good for a real Conanophile? Probably not. It's probably going to be perfectly fine for somebody who's a non-Conanophile who's picking this up to say, I have a general interest in Conan. Let me just read a one-off Conan story. So for those of you who are out there who are thinking that way, by all means. But you wouldn't have watched the video all the way through, would you? No. If you're a Conanophile like me, you're going to say, no, I'm not a big fan. Nice thing to have in your collection as a completist. Would I say you have to have it to read the story? Well, listen, I just gave you the story. I showed you the panels. You probably don't. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next video.